talk today is Infinite Diversity in Infinite Combinations, a vision worth living into. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Cheryl. Everybody. Just need to push this back a little bit. So I have room. So hello, everybody out in the Zoom land, everybody in Ottawa. I'm so excited to be back here again and talking to everybody. I met some beautiful people last time I was here, and it's great to speak to this community and to challenge. So it's interesting that the vision is to stretch our vision.
You just taller, so.
Okay, okay. Sorry, everybody. So today, the talk is an experiment. And one of the reasons some of the slides may not match up with what I'm talking about because the talk was changing faster than I could change the slides. But the basic theme is infinite diversity in infinite combinations. And that, oh, I got to hit enter, sorry. And that is a Star Trek symbol of a circle and a triangle. And it was worn by Vulcans in the Star Trek universe. And it's the idea that the universe is at its most beautiful, not when we're the same, but when we honor difference, when we cherish difference, and when we weave our differences together in a community like here in Unity Kitchener, out there in Ottawa, and that beautiful combination of Ottawa and Kitchener weave together as a community. And all those combinations, infinite diversity, is what we should be celebrating. So before I get into the talk, I want to explain why I'm using the Star Trek universe for a talk that's really about a very central part of Unity. And the idea, again, is to expand our vision, to look at the universal, to step outside our everyday world and look at where we are from a different perspective. And the Star Trek vision exemplifies our mission here through Unity. And that is the celebration of diversity, the celebration of all the beautiful combinations. So if you put yourself up at in a Star Trek Enterprise, and you're walking around the corridors, and most of us have seen those shows where they're going around the corridors, and you're seeing every kind of being that you can imagine, all different shapes, sizes, colors, cultures, beyond reckoning. And then we take it back down to our planet and how we deal with diversity here. So it's that universal viewpoint, and I want to use that viewpoint and the inner universe within us to celebrate those differences. And you all recognize this guy, I'm sure. And he said, the glory of creation is in its infinite diversity. So today I'm challenging you to keep that perspective of the Star Trek universe while you enter your own internal universe. And we look at the places within us where we create boundaries, and the places within us where we can begin to dissolve those boundaries. And we all have them. We're human beings. Judgment is very quick to come to our minds. So it's centering in that space where you are a universe, part of a multi-universe of all of us. So it's a vision, it's a principle, a spiritual principle, and a world we can all begin to live in. Starting with how we see ourselves and each other. So Vulcans saw the vision, their vision of infinite diversity and infinite combinations, as a spiritual principle, not just a social principle, not just something you talk about. They actually lived that idea. And they believed that peace and inner logic required honoring difference. Think about that. Honoring difference. How are we in our world honoring difference? It's not about suppressing difference. It's not about forcing everybody into a conformity, but it's harmony in contrast.
That's true.
So it's a living symbol of possibility. It's become not just science fiction, but a vision that we can live into, but something that's possible. So I just want to do give you a little history of myself and why these things are important to me and how they've helped shape who I am. But listening to everybody talking this morning, most of you have very similar experiences. So I was born in London, England. I lived there for 8 years of my life. Then my parents emigrated to Canada, and they thought I was well behaved enough to take along the journey. So I grew up in Ontario. I went to high school here. I went to college in Toronto. And then I did something really different. I joined Scientology. And my mother's all freaked out, and it's just the cult and everything. But it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life to have a different view of spirituality and a different way of approaching it. So that meant I spent almost a year in the United States, living in Los Angeles and New York. When I returned here, I made my way up to the whole West Coast, state, Oregon, and California. So it's a playground. So you can see my idea of borders is beginning to shift. When my partner passed away, I moved back to Ontario to be here closer to family. And I spent 2 winters on Rice Lake, if anybody knows, near Peterborough, where my son lives. And I decided that I didn't want to do that very often, right? So I was in London. I joined the London Unity, and I took a Power Plus course. So anybody taken Power Plus course? They are so amazing. And doing that course got me to the point where I could get to Panama for the winter. And I am now in my 9th year, going on my 10th, living in Panama for the winter. So where does that leave me? Am I a British citizen, a Canadian citizen, a Panamanian citizen? When you ask those questions, they get harder to define myself as a Canadian or a Panamanian. So there was this loosening of this idea of being somebody who lives in a country, and I begin to belong everywhere. And some of you here have experienced that. And these borders are no longer as firm to us as they used to be. So I began to see myself not as a citizen of one country, but a citizen of the planet. And I think this is where we are moving towards more and more. Those borders are getting porous, they're getting very thin, and now people are trying to build walls to hold those borders together because it's a natural reaction. We want to pull ourselves in and protect our own turf. And we want to feel that comfort and safety of that little bubble that's ours. But the world is moving beyond that. And that's part of our challenge, is to go from just being Canadian to being a citizen of the entire planet. So we're getting to the space where we stop asking, where are you from? And instead we begin to wonder, what have you loved? What has shaped you? What is in your heart? Far different questions, but more meaningful questions than just where are you from? Seurat is a Balkan philosopher. He said the spear in the other's heart is the spear in your own. And he led his people out of a violent existence to a peaceful one using this concept. But isn't that just like our concept? It's not that difference. And so we have this unity concept that if we harm someone, we know we're harming ourselves. In the Course of Miracle, if you harm your brother, you're harming yourself. It's an important part of how we live together, accept each other, and accept all our diversity. And we know that in unity, there is no other in spirit. It can't possibly be. So think about that. There's only one presence, one power, and we are all the expressions of it. And that's what we live here in unity. So if we were to truly live by the principles of infinite diversity in infinite combinations, what would have to change? It's not about being out there on that starship. It's about what's going on in here, in our world and in our relationships. Would we need to let go of old binaries? Labels that divide rather than describe. Recently, I wrote in my journal, a word cannot hold all of its meaning. We expect too much of our words, and our labels can't do that either. When I say I'm gay, it gives you a clue about me. But the word gay cannot possibly contain all the infinite combinations that live within me. We give our labels a power they cannot possibly live up to. And it's the same when someone says, I'm straight. That word too is just a hint. It's a starting point, not a whole story. And yet we use those two words and we make it a divide, and we make one right and the other wrong. If I say I'm a Palestinian and the person next to me says I'm Israeli, we have a divide. But if I say I'm a human being living in Palestine, and this person says I'm a human being living in Israel, we have a connection. We're all human beings. We're both human. We start to dissolve those boundaries between us. So it's time to ask, do the words I use point toward the unity behind diversity, or do they build barriers to it? We have our unity, from which comes all of the diversity, all the combinations. So we have the unity and diversity. It's all part of the same thing. Even the label unity for our beloved community can be a divide. We can say, well, unity people think this way, and now we have a divide. So it's a challenge to us to learn to use our language in a way that celebrates diversity rather than creating it. If we stick to our labels, we create a concrete thing that can't be changed. It's like set in stone. But unity is a living, evolving idea. And we don't want to concretize unity by making that a label, because we want the evolution. Ever since I've been in unity for about 10 years now, it's been evolving. There is an evolution going on in the idea of unity, and we need to keep that alive. And here's something Ayn Rand said. She said, the biggest minority in the world is you, the individual. You are the biggest minority. There is no one in this entire galaxy, in this entire universe, that is exactly the same as you. So we need to learn to recognize that difference is not a mistake. It is not something to fix. And many of you have probably lived with this idea that you're broken or there's something wrong with you and you need to fix it. It took me a long time to get to the point where I could see my difference as a gift, something special, something that gave me a different viewpoint. So we need to recognize and celebrate. And this morning, that's what we were doing. We were recognizing and celebrating difference. And it's the diversity of the rainforest that keeps it alive. It's not the soloist, but the chorus that gives depth to music. And that includes the diversity within us. The parts of us that we've judged, and who hasn't judged parts of ourselves, and tucked it away, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Our doubts, our fears, our shadow self, the one that we really wouldn't want anybody else to see. And that's part of our humanness. There's no error there. That's part of being human and part of living in a world where we are also a divine spirit. There's a good quote here. Difference is that raw and powerful connection from which our personal power is forged. Not sameness. Difference is that raw and powerful connection. That's where the connection is. If we really live by this vision, we might stop building walls, not just in countries, but between our hearts. We'd stop needing everyone to agree with us in order to love them. And think about your families, because I think families is the best example of this. We don't always agree with every member of our family, but we still love them in most cases. right? So it's an idea to carry forward to create a larger vision, that we don't have to agree with somebody to love them. We don't have to be the same. When we start looking at people, at every soul we meet as a combination we've never seen before, and we will never see again. When you start thinking of, you have a new member come to your congregation, think what's happening. You're adding infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and it's changing the combination right there of the community. It changes all the other combinations. It's magical, it's exciting. And that's where we should be celebrating. All of this magic is happening. So where does that leave us? Here we are on this little blue planet orbiting a star, sharing space with 8 billion other souls. Every one of them a different expression of divinity. Every one of them, 8 billion people. And each one of them has their own story. We may not have warp drive yet, and we may not live on Vulcan, but we are here to celebrate that vision right now, in this moment. It's a practice we can walk with and live into every day. And that's the challenge. It begins with a shift in how we see ourselves, from judgment to curiosity, from separation to reverence, from fear to awe. Our vision here at Unity is a call to live open-hearted, to let go of the need of sameness, to become a community not of clones, but of combinations. And just look around the room, everybody out there in Ottawa, just look around in your life at all the different combinations that are part of your life. What do you really celebrate? Somebody who's exactly the same as you, or the person who's different, that gives you an interest, that sparks you. So it's that celebration. And if we keep living this way, if we keep working on our inner selves to dissolve those borders, we have the opportunity to live those principles, where it's in a world where it's no longer a science fiction vision like Star Trek, or a vision like Unity, but an actual reality. Think about what that world will feel like, where we don't isolate people by labels, but we celebrate their difference with joy, reverence, respect, knowing that that's what makes this whole beautiful. So I want to take this into meditation. I want to get everybody to feel comfortable in their chairs. Now, I invite you to turn within. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And take a slow, deep breath in and out. let yourself arrive fully here. Imagine a world where every person you meet is not a stranger, but a sacred combination. Unique, beautiful, never to be repeated. Picture yourself walking through this world with eyes of wonder, with a heart open to mystery. Every color, every voice, every different, a note in the great song of creation. Now bring that vision closer into your own life. Where might you practice this? Who might you see differently? What part of yourself might you welcome home? In this moment, you are part of the infinite, a singular expression of divine possibility. And so is the person next to you. And so is the one you struggled to understand. Let this be your practice to greet difference with curiosity, to let love make room for contrast, to remember always that in infinite diversity, there is infinite beauty. And when you're ready, begin to return. You can wiggle your toes, your fingers, breathe in, and open your eyes. Thank you.